Let me start with this. Last night, the New Orleans Saints, in overtime, won by a field goal over the LA Chargers. The only reason the game was in overtime was, well, it's the Chargers. All right. The Money Badger, as their kicker, Michael Badgley's known as, doinked one, missed one in a PAT, which allowed the Saints to tie in regulation, and then had a chance to win the game with a 50-yard field goal where he hit the upright. It wasn't a complete shank, but it didn't draw it either, and the Chargers went to overtime. They gave up a field goal to the Saints. They drove down and ended up with nothing. They were about, 2 feet short of a first down. Mike Williams got tackled, but part of it was Herbert's throw was slightly behind and slightly high, and so Mike Williams couldn't just catch it and keep running where he would have gotten the first down. But the bigger story is the New Orleans Saints, who, if you looked at their record, you'd go like, all right, what's the big deal? Here the Saints are in a competitive division at the top of it at 2-0, and they have a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's a great win. Up next is the surprising Carolina Panthers. Then they go to Chicago, take on the Bears. Then they go to Tampa, take on the Bucs. The Niners, the Falcons, the Broncos, the Falcons, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Panthers. It's not a crazy schedule, and one where you're going to see them win between 10 and 12 games fairly handily. But this is supposed to be a Super Bowl team. And what happened to the Saints, I actually think it's understandable. It's reasonable. There's a little bit of a smokescreen there. 2 years ago when they lost to the Rams, everybody made a huge deal about the no call of pass interference on third down. On fourth down, they kicked a field goal. The Rams, both teams got the ball in regulation, in overtime, and then the Rams end up winning in overtime. People want to make it sound like pass interference was the last play of the game. It wasn't. It also wasn't the most important play even of that series. On first down, Drew Brees audibleized out of a sure run and threw the ball at the feet and behind his wide receiver. That stopped the clock. That allowed, in turn, the Rams to ultimately get the football back instead of them running out and kicking a field goal as time expired or scoring a touchdown as time expired. They did not. Secondly, the Saints got the ball back in overtime, could do nothing with it. Oh, yeah, and I actually think Brees might have thrown an interception in overtime. He turned it over. Then this year, they got behind big to the Minnesota Vikings at home, couldn't move the football. And yes, Kirk Cousins made an incredible throw to end up winning the game. And yes, there was another controversy, but there was another series of stalled drives, but a big stalled drive by Drew Brees. They've been hiding the fact that Drew Brees can't lead them to a Super Bowl for the last 2 years because of blown calls. Heck, even if you go back 3 years ago when they had a good team, they were a wild card team. They went on the road to take on the Minnesota Vikings and were going to win and pull off an upset. They likely weren't going to beat Philadelphia on the road the next weekend, but that play, the Minnesota Miracle, again, overshadows that Brees' arm at the end of the last couple of seasons hasn't been good enough. Now here we are in the beginning of the regular season, and though he threw a couple of good balls, one, it's indoors, two, there's just a limit there to what he's able to do. Like, why do they keep bringing Taysom Hill in the game? Why do you think? Do you think Sean Payton's just doing it because he wants confirmation over his desire to see Taysom Hill be the heir apparent? Or you think it puts his team in what he thinks is the best situation to win and to score? Because there's limitations on what Drew Brees can do. He's not mobile, and he can't throw guys open anymore because he doesn't have the pop in his arm. Here's the Saints offense. Give it to Kamara, or hope you get something crossing underneath where Drew Brees can throw it and lead a guy, and he can make a play. Granted, they don't have Michael Thomas. I would grant you take the best player off any team, you're going to look different offensively. But Michael Thomas is not a deep threat, and they don't have explosive plays, even though they have explosive players, and that comes down to the quarterback. The difference here is, and look, I use the St. Louis Cardinals as the best analogy. They had Albert Pujols. Albert Pujols won a 9-year contract. They offered him a 6-year contract. At the end of his final season with the Cardinals, they offered him just enough so that they could say we offered him a 9-year deal, but not enough to really be a player. And they bid him adieu. And he went to the Angels, where he's only had 1 year in the playoffs. And the Cardinals had subsequently been to the playoffs multiple times and actually won a World Series without him. It doesn't mean that Pujols is a bad guy or a bad player. He was just searching for the best deal with the most viable team, because the best contract was actually the Marlins at the time. But when Brees announced he was coming back, that was actually a bad thing. And the thing that jumps out at me is the Chargers, and I know they keep finding ways to lose games. I feel like they're the most snake-bit team in the NFL. Derwin James out for the year. Pouncey out for the year. You look at how many times they've missed games because of field goal kicking, no matter who the field goal. Ever since Nate Kading retired, they haven't found a solid field goal kicker, it feels like. Keenan Allen got hurt last night. He had gone a couple years since getting hurt, but previous to that, he always got hurt. It's always something with him. Melvin Gordon holds out, or Melvin Gordon comes back and all he does is score touchdowns and he fumbles right at the end zone. They've had a million things go wrong, but their process has been the right one, like what happened with Phillip Rivers. Right? Phillip Rivers. Did you ever hear that they were unhappy with Phillip Rivers? No. Do you think they were happy with Phillip Rivers? The answer is no. They didn't love the fact that he walked away and went to Indianapolis, but it didn't bother him that much either. There was some talks. There was a mutual agreement, a mutual parting of ways, right? And now look at them. They're in a better place because they have the heir apparent and a Justin Herbert. Knowing they probably should have taken Pat Mahomes a couple years ago, but the situation would have been stickier the past 2 years. That's what the Saints have been unable to do. Because Drew Brees won't retire, they've been unable to get that heir apparent, and they've had to take Bridgewater and get him on the cheap, and now get Jameis on the cheap, and just hope that Brees is either good enough, or maybe he shuts it down for a couple games, and you can see what you have with Jameis. They just don't. They're not willing to give Jameis a shot. Brees is such a historically great player that you can't really bench him. But they're just not good enough with him to where you can see them actually winning big games, especially on the road in the playoffs. The defense is okay. Can't have guys running free in the fourth quarter and getting wide open touchdowns like Mike Williams did. That just can't happen. So the Saints they're in that weird quarterback purgatory where they know they can't get to the finish line with this ship, but they can at least be in the race for a while. And maybe they hope everybody else falls by the wayside, or maybe they hope they can smoke and mirrors it till they get to a situation where Brees' guts and his determination and his brain carry the fact that his arm isn't there. But you can give me this whole, you are who your record says you are. But if you look around right now and you say, how good are the New Orleans Saints really? They weren't really that competitive with the Packers. They were beaten by the Raiders, granted on the road in the first game in Vegas. And the wins are over Tampa, but that was first game of the season, and Lions and Chargers, 2 non-playoff teams. I think the ceiling is far lower for the Saints, and Brees is mostly the reason, even though he's been the reason for their success for many years previous to this.